How's it going there, fellow gamers? I'm Jonathan Pruitt, this is Jim Davis, and on a very special WebDM today, we're going to tell you exactly why we ain't afraid of no ghosts.
Or banshees.
Or shadows.
Or specters.
Or poltergeists.
Or will-o-wisps.
Or wraiths.
Or allops.
Or callers in darkness.
Yeah.
Callers?
Callers, yeah.
All right, Jim, what do we have to be afraid of from ghosts?
Well, I mean, a ghost, not much. I mean, you just help it fulfill its unresolved task, and then it passes on to the afterlife. It's specters and wraiths and shadows, etc. that you really have to be afraid of.
Let's take a walk down Incorporeal Lane.
Yeah.
What are your favorites?
I think my absolute favorite Incorporeal Undead has got to be the Shadow.
Yeah.
First off, they don't spawn after someone dies. So like a banshee is a beautiful elf who lived a joyless and hateful life and slowly becomes a banshee. A specter is the ghost of someone who, died suddenly and violently, they or died in fear and despair. A poltergeist doesn't know how they died. So there's all these different incorporeal undead that are related to how a person in Dungeons and Dragons died, which kind of like there must be ghosts everywhere in a typical D&D world.
I hate to steal from Watchmen, but violent lives ending violently.
Yes,
and that's all that there is in D&D, right?
But the shadow doesn't come from anything other than a necromancer.
Right.
A shadow is ripped from someone and created, and it's this evil undead thing that exists only to murder non-evil creatures, right? Like it prefers to seek out good and neutral aligned creatures, murder them, creating other shadows.
Yeah.
So that's why I like the Shadow best. I mean, the Wraith is pretty cool. It's sort of a similar, an evil person lives a malevolent, nasty, hateful life, dies, and is so hate-filled that they just stay around and become a channel for negative energy. I mean, in a lot of ways, there's not as much to fear from ghosts because they really had their teeth removed. Earlier editions, they would age you, they would steal levels from you. I mean, like, that was the big thing that made them so terrifying in early editions of D&D. Is because like they're gonna take your levels away, man.
Yeah, you are no longer a 6th level fighter. Now you're 5th.
Now you're 5th.
You're gonna get hit again.
You're gonna get hit again.
Can I hear 4th?
Yeah. now you're 20 years older.
Yeah.
Like they can be really nasty opponents in earlier editions of the game, and every edition has kind of made them progressively less and less harsh, and the penalties for mistakes when fighting them have been lessened over time. So now we're looking at Incorporeal Undead. A lot of them have a death attack, meaning that when they do get you to 0, you're dead. No saves. So that's kind of nasty in this edition. Sometimes that's accompanied by a save that you can do to sort of offset the hit point loss or the permanency of it. But a lot of times the ghosts and banshees and wraiths and specters, they do have these abilities that allow them to really hit the players where it hurts them.
You said your favorites are Incorporeal to Shadow.
Yeah.
What are some ways to incorporate that? Like, how would you incorporate shadows into a campaign?
So for me, I really have always wanted to run a game that centers around a shadow infestation. For me, the fact that I take a look at the commoner in the NPC index or appendix, and I look and see it's got like 8 or 9 hit points, an armor class of 10. I go and look at the shadow, and I go, this thing's going to kill a commoner in 1 hit. And D4 hours later, it's going to rise as a shadow. And so I wanted to run one where, say, a necromancer or a shadow dragon or something sets off like 1 shadow and creates it. And then that 1 shadow just wipes out a valley full of villages. Or, and it gets out of hand before the clerics and paladins of the world can unite to stop it.
Right.
I kind of think that a shadow infestation would be a serious threat to most D&D worlds. And that even the presence of a single shadow, if not dealt with swiftly, could mean that entire regions get wiped off the map because they have no way to hurt this thing that can just pass through walls and underneath doors and strangle them in their sleep and hide in deep dark caves during the day and come out only at night. And so I might have a low-level campaign based entirely around a horde of shadows infesting some forgotten graveyard and terrorizing the countryside.
And you call it Valley of the Shadow and Death.
Yes, Valley in the Shadow of Death. Always a campaign seed that I've wanted to use because I do think it's serious enough that angels would come down and intervene, and that the world's clerics and paladins would have to be called to deal with something of that magnitude.
Yeah, because by the time, word got out, it might be 3-4 villages gone. You know,
Yeah.
you're probably looking at like 300-400 shadows down there.
Yeah, and that's going to be really rough. I mean, other ways you can use Incorporeal Undead in a game, you know, ghosts make really useful, sort of, they could be a combat encounter, but it can be a more skill challenge based encounter as you're trying to resolve this ghost's, you know, business.
Yeah, why bust it when you could just help it?
Exactly, exactly. And if you do fight it, watch out for the ghost. Their most powerful ability is the ability to possess. I mean, they do a lot of just base necromantic damage, but they can take over your fighter.
Or your barbarian.
Or your barbarian. And, you know, if you don't have the means to force it out of there with like a protection from evil spell or a turn undead, then there's not a lot you can do about it. And if a ghost is angry with you, it can cause a lot of havoc in the party. You have to hurt an ally or a friend.
Yeah, that's no fun for anybody.
It's no fun for anyone. And, you know, a lot of the other Incorporeal Undead, they're real challenges for low-level parties. They can't be hurt by non-magic weapons or highly resistant to most damage. If you don't have force, radiant, or psychic damage, what are you going to do? Or a magic weapon.
Yeah.
So those are really kind of the 4 tools that you need in order to face Incorporeal Undead. And they're not as readily available as say, just a regular sword or a fireball.
Yeah, you want to make sure you have try to have a blade lock in your party. Or a druid.
Or a druid, yeah.
With a shillelagh.
Devotion Paladin. There's a lot of different ways that you can get a magic weapon without actually having magic weapon, the spell, or the item. Having those in the party. Vicious Mockery is one of the few sort of go-to psychic damage potentials, perhaps using the Mystic and some of the psychic damage that they can do. One of the changes I made to the monster manual is I made ghosts vulnerable to psychic damage in the same way that shadows are vulnerable to radiant damage. Just because of it makes sense to me that they're, you know, unhappy psyches that are just kind of lingering.
Yeah, I mean, they are just like a leftover psychic imprint, kind of. That's the way they're kind of seen.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
Yeah. So I mean, I kind of think you when we were kind of talking about this Incorporeal Undead, you've yourself has some ideas for how you would run a campaign that strongly features Incorporeal Undead that I thought were interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it is similar to your shadow idea, but it would be like a necromancer, like a death cleric. Maybe they find some kind of, you know, the dark heart, some kind of necromancy stone.
Right.
So he plows through a bunch of villages, and he's figured out how to create these undead.
Yeah.
And, like, he knows exactly how to create poltergeists, exactly how to create, you know, maybe not banshees because that takes a long time.
Yeah.
But he knows how to create these things, so he just leaves in his wake all these tragedies, suicides, and horrible murders, and people not knowing how they died, so they're raised as poltergeists. The party has to follow in his wake, and they're trying to uncover like how is all this happening.
Yeah.
And whether or not they figure out it's one dude and he's leaving this in his trail, you then have to figure out, do we want to take these village by village and actually solve all these individual cases of undead, or if you do that,
part of them,
he might get to his end goal,
Yeah.
and then he turns around and has a whole valley of undead at his disposal now that he can control all of them with this artifact or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or do they run ahead and try to stop him, and therefore they're surrounded on all sides by poltergeists? Like I said, just kind of sprung up and it was like, that would be a cool idea, and I really wish I hadn't have told you that, because now I can never use it with you. It's like, well, we need to rush ahead, guys. I don't know about you.
Rush ahead. So I think one of the things that I like about the Incorporeal Undead is because they they turn a CR0 commoner into a CR2, 3, or 4 monster.
Right.
Through tragedy.
Yeah.
And it suggests that there's this larger D&D world where real people live in it and requires the suspension of disbelief, but what happens to that village who suffers a massive tragedy and now, say, there was a massacre by orcs and now they have to deal with a ghost infestation?
Yeah.
Right. Or there was and probably also ghouls who were feasting on their corpses. So that undead are one of those monsters where people in a D&D world must have to deal with these kinds of things on a daily basis and have evolved and thought up different ways. There's not always an adventurer around who can help them out.
Right.
And so Incorporeal Undead are just one of those where people might just get used to things being haunted.
Yeah.
Or it might be that a place gains a reputation for being haunted, whether it is or isn't. It then becomes abandoned, monsters move in, and now it really is haunted. And you have to worry about the fact that there's a pack of gnolls living in that abandoned tower stealing everybody's cows. But getting back to Incorporeal, it's one of those things where the players, if they understand what the different types are, maybe their character's a ghost hunter, and they can go, well, what are all these wraiths doing here? Wraiths are fairly uncommon. There hasn't been a great tragedy in this region.
Yeah.
Maybe someone's creating these wraiths.
Yeah, maybe
Is kind of how you progress through that campaign. Low-level adventures are more like murder mystery, investigation. Sort of in your campaign idea, it's like, do you stop at each village and try to figure out what created this particular type of undead? And then only realizing after the fact, like, oh no, someone else is doing this.
There's always a description of a mysterious robed stranger in the background.
Right,
you know,
right.
like,
The
oh,
ghost master.
We need to find that guy.
Yeah. And so I think that, Incorporeal Undead used to be really terrifying to fight. It's less so now, but if you don't have the right tools, you don't have the reliable damage types that can affect them, they can be really annoying. And don't let their low CR fool you.
Right.
Bring a light cleric and a devotion paladin if you know you're going to be fighting a lot of Incorporeal Undead.
Are there any Incorporeal from previous editions?
So I think the Aleph is one, the sort of a ghost of someone who, plagued by a mental illness or madness, committed suicide, and now has come back as a life-hating, mad ghost.
Yeah.
The Aleph. There are some more epic level. The Caller in Darkness, I believe, is one that has just like an epic level ghost.
Yeah.
That sort of suffused with negative energy. In a lot of ways, I find the fact that there's more than one interesting in and of itself. Like, why isn't it just ghost? And it's the fact that all of these specific types of Incorporeal Undead are made in specific circumstances.
Right.
That leads me to believe that ghosts must be something that regular people in D&D have to deal with way too often.
Right. The type of ghost that comes back after you fall off your horse in a riding accident.
Right.
What would that be?
Wait, what's that? Or it's the will-o-wisp who is just so... It's the ghost of someone evil who was traveling through a swamp suffused with magic who got lost and drowned. Or something like that. The will-o-wisp. It's just like, all right, that's very specific.
So if Gollum in the marshes had drowned in the water when he was trying to save Frodo...
Yes.
He would have come back as a will-o-wisp.
He would have come back as a will-o-wisp, but Frodo and them might have come back as specters because they were killed by a malicious evil entity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well.
Yeah. Or, wraiths can create specters. That's a pretty handy thing to do in the middle of a combat. Kill an NPC because now it's dead. Or kill a PC. They don't get any death saving throws. You automatically kill them. Next round, resurrect them as a specter. I can imagine for low-level parties, a fight with a wraith or two getting quickly out of hand if they're not careful.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. If you're not watching what you're doing, the wrong crit at the wrong time, who knows?
And then you're done. And then you're dead. Now there's a specter. Now there's two of them. All right. Sucks for you. Be careful with ghosts.
Yeah.
So maybe we do have something to fear with ghosts.
Yeah. So once again, thanks for watching WebDM. Go ahead and subscribe. Let us know in the comments. Head on over to Facebook. Like us over there. Tell your friends about us. Come on back next time. We can't wait to see you. Have a good one.